You're watching Everydays and Saturdays, USCC veteran. Let's go, baby. And here's your host, Brian. And what's going on, friends and family? Thank you guys so much for joining Brian and Marie on another episode of Coffee Talk. Thank you guys so much for staying with us. We appreciate you guys so much. And how are we doing today, Marie?
I'm doing tired right now, but
I'm
good,
doing
you know?
tired.
Yeah, I'm a little bit more settled right now and just didn't sleep well last night, but I'm
So are you
overall
doing tired or
good.
is tired doing you? I
Both.
mean, okay, all right, okay.
I know
The
I said that and
sandwich.
I was like, I said that completely wrong. I am tired, but I'm doing okay. I've been clearing my mind a lot, trying to let go of my ego and control of situations recently and just trying to let God run the show because I have a tendency to play God in my
Mm,
relationships,
yeah.
in my own life, or I tend to get pity party if things aren't working the way that I want it to. And so with me letting go, the last couple of weeks, I've actually written 4 more poems and I've started writing another kid's book. I've been just like letting go. And when I let go, the creative juices just start flowing. So
So the
I'm
first
I'm
word that comes
excited.
to mind for me is realization. I feel like you've
Yeah.
you've had some realizations here and in a little bit of time to maybe reflect.
Yes.
And I imagine that a combination of you probably leaning out and talking to some of your peeps and maybe a little bit of some alone time for you to
Yes.
have that time as well. I think that's a lot of people struggle with is the alone time part,
Yes.
and being comfortable being by themselves. Sometimes just because that's when the demons speak the loudest, right? Or you can hear them the most. And
Oh
so a
yeah.
lot of people don't like those moments of being alone, and a lot of people keep themselves busy, busy, busy. So if there's an importance part where where you got to learn how to silence the demons to allow yourself to work through some things, right?
I'm gonna read a poem about that concept after our commercial. But I wanted to say, that's something that I've been noticing is I don't do well in silence, and I have noticed that one of my patterns that I've been getting stuck in, and I don't like it, is just distracting on TV and scrolling the dreaded doom scroll, just for
Yeah.
like hours on
You
my
could get
phone.
lost when you start getting into
Yeah.
them reels,
Yes, and
you
so
know.
so the thing
They're
is
like
like
7-second reels. You could probably go through thousands.
yes. And so the thing is like over this last week, I've been really focusing on not doing that so much. And so I've been doing more art and I've been doing like so I'll just show you one of my things. I've just been like doodling,
Oh, yeah.
just
Love
just
that. That's
having
wild.
fun, just opening my brain up. And then uh-oh. Hold on. Sorry,
Uh-oh.
my computer. Okay, I'm still good.
Yeah.
And then like yesterday I started listening one of my passions when I was younger was astrophysics. And I originally was an applied mathematics major. I was going for my BS in applied mathematics and I was going to go for a PhD in applied mathematics with a minor in astrophysics, but I got lost in my addictions and forgot that I liked that stuff. I forgot that I liked having my brain going. And so then as I got sober, I've been so focused on the mental health stuff and on the art and on the writing. And I'm like, but there's this whole other side of my brain that I haven't utilized in a while. So I'm starting to do some research again. I don't know if anything's going to come up of it, but I'm going to start doing some lectures, and just kind of get my brain going. So,
I love
but I
that.
wanted to I wanted to ask because we always at the beginning you always ask me how I'm doing, and then we go into my own stuff, and then you just move on real quickly. But how are you doing? What is
I'm
going
doing
on with you, with the move, with your
uh,
family? How are things going? I know you've got a lot going on right now.
I think, the one word I can use for myself is confusion. It's just the moving process has been a little bit more of a struggle than I thought it would be. first I'm moving from a different county, from LA County to San Diego County. That's already tough within itself because there's just, I mean, it's weird how we live in one state or something, and even in the United States of America, and how different it could be. You could just move in from one county to another county, just different. They play by different rules. I mean, it's just a different ball game, and I'm learning that part, right? And I'm just like, because I'm used to being in the LA County world, and you know, the, I've been in this county my entire life, pretty much, besides when I was stationed in Oceanside, California, and that's where I'm moving back to. But I was like, when I was stationed there, I was still kind of considered an LA County resident, so uh, it's just different, and it's not as easy as I thought it would be making the transition, moving, because we've already kind of gone through houses and and being that 100% disabled, and I'm on this program called HUD-VASH. I'm kind of under the mercy of everybody and moving through their processes and their programs and things like that. So,
Can you explain what HUD-VASH is, just in case we've got listeners who have never heard of it?
yeah, so HUD-VASH is basically a program for veterans, and it's really to keep veterans from being on the streets here in California. So if anybody out there, if you're on the streets, you've been on the streets, or you're going to be on the streets, look into, there's a couple programs. One is HUD-VASH, but
And it's
before,
not just in California, it's actually all over.
yeah, this is California HUD-VASH, and so, um, and that's the other thing. Even though it's the program, they don't operate the same, right? So LA County is not San Diego County, even though they're the same entity. They do
Mhm.
not operate the same, right? So you're learning that too. But I'm finding out, like, in terms of, there's pros and cons in everything that you do, right? So, like, when it comes to San Diego, they just seem to move faster with things and get things moving a lot faster. Here in LA County, they drag their ass. It was just forever, and some of these processes are meant to help you not have stress and stuff, but some of them actually create more stress in your life and make it harder, right? And then, so it just it it's a blessing, but it's also a curse in the same moment. Like, once everything's all good and we finally get to where we gotta be, it's blessing. But the getting there is the holy shit. It's the climbing the mountain, and weathering the storm as you're climbing the mountain, sliding down the mountain a couple times, because I've been thinking,
Exhaustion.
yeah, I've been thinking, well, we're good to go. I've already driven down to San Diego now, and it's a good 3.5 hour drive one way, right? So I'm doing a 7 hour trip usually in a day. And gosh damn, if anybody knows LA traffic or San Diego traffic, good
Horrid.
night. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, my daughter, we were like staying down there. She was like, it was like a 6 mile drive. It took 30 minutes to do 6 miles. You know what I mean? And
That's
and
ridiculous.
so California traffic is not fun. And if I could get the hell out of California, I certainly would. But because of kids and things of that nature, I'm pretty much stuck here. So if I'm gonna be stuck
Yeah.
here, I'm gonna try to go to somewhere nice. Where I live, and I'm sorry, we're being a little lengthy here. But where I live, it has the highest tax bracket in the country. We're at 11.25% sales tax where I live.
Ooh.
So when you go to the store here and you go buy something, you pay an extra 11.25%. That's the highest in the if you look it up, it is the absolute highest. So Lancaster Palmdale is horrible for that, and because they consider us LA County as well. But we're a little ass city. We're a little city. It will blow you away how we could have the highest tax bracket, but the people that around here, they just vote because they think that they're doing the right thing. Like, oh, this measure is going to help homeless. Is this measure is going to do this? But none of it actually does. So, anyways, enough about all that stuff. Let's go ahead and
Yeah.
do our coffee break real quick and represent some Cash Coffee, and then we'll get into our next guest. Let me get this queued up, and here
Okay.
we go. All right. That is some Cash Coffee. Don't forget, the link is in the show if you would like to go check them out. They got all kinds of cool stuff besides coffee. They got cool apparel, uh, fitness stuff, all kinds of cool things. Really cool place. All right, Marie, we're going to go ahead and start it off how we normally do with an amazing poem by you, and then we'll have you introduce our guest, and we'll get this show on the road. Here we go. I'm going to give you the stage.
Perfect. Okay, today's poem I wrote yesterday actually, and was I was talking with a friend about that idea of going into, your heart and giving your heart a voice and working through things, and how sometimes, it's pretty hard looking inside. So this one is called A Heart's Voice. There are so many stories written on my heart. Some cover cracks like an abstract piece of art. I'm trying to write them, filling never ending pages, yet there are still many things I've locked behind cages. I get overwhelmed when I shine light inside. I wonder if my many fears will ever just subside. I get lost in what ifs or sadness from my past. The anxieties of the future keeps my present in a cast. I'm not good at sitting still. Even writing can be a distraction. When I open my heart to God, that's when I get traction. As I continue writing my stories to be shared, God heals my heart, no matter how it's layered. Every time I let Him in, another piece is mended, fragile places fixed with armor, so I can be defended. I wrote when I was younger, trying on my own to look at the hurt. Then more cages were grown. I was lost in pain and fear. Darkness strangled me. Now God guides my voice. Each day I feel more free. I used to pick and choose what parts to give a voice. That's why I stuffed things down. Now I can rejoice. Writing brings change for me, a peace within my soul. I get to share it with others. Advocacy is my goal. Letting someone know their voice can be won and overcoming fear truly can be done. Writing is the voice God gave me for my heart. I also get to heal through other means of art. I hope we all can find a way to let God win, finding unique voices to heal from within. One day, the norm no longer will be silence. The choir of our voices will overcome the violence. We will stop hurting others or hurting ourselves inside because we will be healed from ego, shame, and pride.
Love that.
Thank you.
It kind of goes along the lines of like, I think a lot of hurt people live a hurt life, right? And they project a lot of that, right? And they
Yes.
tend to uh hurt others a lot, or just live life angry because they're just carrying a lot of stuff that they've not get rid of. But I thank you for another amazing poem. All right, let's
Thank
go
you.
ahead and our guest has been waiting long enough. Um,
Yes.
he's another wasn't ready to be a Marine yet, but we'll we'll hear all about his story and go ahead and introduce him.
Yes. So we have Stephen Page here with us today. And I met Stephen through our sponsor, Cash Coffee. And we both were messaging on the same stream of chat, and just got to know each other a little bit. And he actually lives about 20 miles away from Cash Coffee.
Oh,
He's
super close.
from Preston, Idaho, but he lives out there in Cache Valley. He joined active duty army. He was in from '08 to 12. So right in between my time frame, or I was in between. And anyways, we kind of overlapped a little bit. He
Yeah.
served in Operation Enduring Freedom as a 35 Mike. I don't know what HUMINT means, so we'll let him kind of explain that. After getting out, he helped run a small business and competed in martial arts, winning the U.S. Nationals and Pan Ams in Olympic Taekwondo. Oh, it's so awesome. I did Taekwondo for a little bit. He also has a brown belt in judo and a purple belt in I think that's jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, if I'm correct, BJJ. I probably said that wrong. He currently owns and operates his own small business. It's called Venom Tactical Techniques and Training. So VT3 and consulting. So, okay, Venom Tactical Techniques Training and Consulting LLC. So VT3C for short. He does emergency management, preparedness, security, tactical, and first aid training and consulting. And I'm super excited to have him on here. And I'm sorry that I murdered the names of everything.
All right, let's bring him on in. What's up, brother? Welcome in.
Thank you guys for having me. Thank you.
Absolutely, and we're excited to have you on, and we're excited to hear all about your experiences and how transitioning out of the military looked like for you. And I imagine we'll hear about martial arts and how that impacted your life as well. So we're excited to have you here, brother, and we're excited to get to know more about you. And the floor is all yours. Unless Marie, do you have anything you want to start off with? Any questions or?
Nope, I just want to hear about you. Tell us about you, and I'm excited to hear more of what you did in the military and how you're transitioning and what you're doing these days.
Yeah. So my road to joining the military actually started when I was really young. My family has been involved with the military on both sides of my family have been involved with the military. The biggest significant one was my two great uncles on my dad's side. They both served in World War II. One was in the 82nd Airborne. The other one was in the 101st Airborne. The one that was in the 101st Airborne, he was actually, if anybody's seen the show Band of Brothers, that talks about Easy Company. He was an Able Company. He was an Alpha Company. So if you guys watch that show, a lot of the stuff he was like that literally followed his life. He was at the Battle of the Bulge. He did, jumped into Normandy, Operation Market Garden.
Holy shit.
Yeah, he's seen some stuff, and I even seen like some of his PTSD. Obviously back then they called it shell shock. Even when I was growing up, a tractor on our family farm backfired, and he hit the dirt and started digging a hole with his hands, trying to dig himself a foxhole. So it was very, very apparent to me. And, and at a younger age, 5, 6 years old, you don't understand why, Uncle Donnie is digging a hole with his fingernails, trying to get away from something. It was just really, really one of those things. But then obviously I was 11 years old when 9/11 happened. That was very, very significant event for me. And I would always been in this idea of service, of serving others. And I decided right then there, yep, I'm going to serve in the military. I don't care what anybody says. I'm raising my right hand. I'm going to do it. So I did. After high school, I joined the military, joined active duty. Marie, you kind of talked about the HUMINT. So that's HUMIT. So it stands for Human Intelligence.
Oh,
so
gotcha.
I was so I was military intelligence, the biggest oxymoron out there. How do you have the military and intelligence? Brian should contest to that, being a Marine.
Oh man, that took me a second because that's how freaking don't get it, But that, yeah, I get it.
But yeah, it was great. I got to learn great things. The skills I still use them to this day. But yeah, I went to Fort Steele, Oklahoma, the home of the field artillery for the military and the Army, and Did my basic there. Then I went to Fort Huachuca, Arizona. That's the home of the intelligence world, and was
I heard
there
about
for.
that a lot growing up. I grew up in Mesa.
Oh, okay, yeah. Then you obviously know.
Yep.
So yeah, we were there. I was there for a long. It felt like forever, but the schoolhouse there it takes for a long time. You're learning a lot in human, because what a lot of people don't know about human is human intelligence is we're out there talking to people. We're actually doing face to face. This isn't we're on. It's not like SIGINT or signal intelligence where we're on a computer listening to communications and gathering intel from that. We're actually out there on the front lines. We like to say we're the ground pounders of the intelligence world. We're the grunts of the intelligence world, because we're out there with Marines, we're out there with infantry, we're out there with special
boots
forces
on the ground. Yeah.
Yep. And we're putting ourselves at risk, and stuff like that. People just think that we were sitting in a cushy office. And the only time I was sitting in a cushy office was I was writing reports. And I wrote reports.
Oh gosh.
I can
That's
imagine
gotta be
how many
the fun
you had
part
to
about it
do.
all.
Oh, it's insane. The when I was in, it was for every hour you talk to somebody, it's about 2 to 3 hours worth of report writing,
Ooh.
because
Wow.
you have to write everything, and you have to try to, and you have to have a keen, sharp memory to remember every little detail, like what was said, how it was said, the mannerisms, the body language, everything, so that if somebody comes back that you hand off that source or that detainee to, they can communicate with them and know what they're getting into.
Now, do you also do like recording, like camera or audio recording when you're doing this?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
Obviously, when we're out like in Kandahar, in the bazaar, can't really record a whole lot. But if we're doing like if we're on like a base or something, we're doing a screening or something, yeah, we'll record just so that if we have to go back to recall, we can. But a lot of that stuff is like we have to be very, very careful with that, because it is classified. It could be getting into some classified information.
Well, I'm wondering, so this is kind of interesting to me. But I'm wondering if nowadays with all the hidden cameras and stuff, if they started incorporating that more when they're out on missions and stuff like that. Because I would think that would be the best thing, is having it on camera so that you could get the most accurate information when somebody's looking through it.
Yeah, so we do have when we were going through, we had a couple courses where we would have used hidden cameras either on our bodies or and stuff like that. It's just you got to be very, very careful with it. It's just because of keeping, because those frequencies can be intercepted. And what we started noticing when I was in was we were starting to see some third party actors getting involved in the war, that we were kind of going and obviously I can't really get too a lot into it because of it is still classified.
Can
I
you
won't be
say
able to
was it our side or other side?
It was other side. It was other side. Definitely, it was. We'll just say it was other enemy state actors that were being involved, and we were seeing stuff where we had to be careful that because that could also compromise our sources that were in whether they were with the Taliban or with Al Qaeda, Lashkar-e-Toiba, all Haqqani network. You name in Afghanistan, you name the terrorist organization, we were involved with them, trying to get intel on them.
So when were you deployed?
So I was deployed from 2011 to 2012.
Okay. So you got out right after the deployment then.
So actually I was supposed to get out during my deployment.
Okay. So they like extended you for the deployment.
So they changed that. So it was a thing called a lot of the guys who are probably hearing this that were in prior to me, in the what we call the initial Global War on Terror, on the initial GWOT, they had a thing called stop loss.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, they got rid of that, and the Obama administration changed it to the extension program, where we volunteered, but we got paid more money, we got more benefits, stuff like that.
Lucky you.
Incentives.
And see, for me, I wanted to serve, and I looked and growing up, and and I had a cousin he's a West Point graduate. He actually just retired as a lieutenant colonel a couple years ago. He and he was a very, very, big influential person in my life when it came to serving. Like he was in the 101st Airborne as an infantry officer. He after Operation Rhino, which was when the 75th Ranger Regiment took down Kandahar Airfield, his unit.
All right, and we're back. We just had to do a quick little fixing on technical difficulties. All right, brother, right back at it.
So yeah, so my cousin was involved with he was involved with stuff with Operation Rhino, and he came in, and he was involved with stuff where he kind of was like telling me, he's like, hey, just be warned, you're gonna do this. So with having these people that were in the war, I kind of was like, nah, I want to serve. I'm not doing this. And when I saw him, and he was in Iraq, he did 2 tours in Iraq, and I just was like, for me, I saw Iraq, and I'll say this, and shame on me for saying it. I didn't buy into the yellow cake, what they were saying about, weapons of mass destruction. So I was like, when they were saying, oh, you might go to Iraq, I was like, nah. But when they were like, hey, you're going to Afghanistan, I was like, hey, that's the war I want, because those are the guys who hit us. That's the war I want to fight in. That's the one I want to defend our country from. And so when they were like, hey, you're going to get out and you can go, but then you're going to get out. And I'm like, no, if I'm going with my battle buddies, these guys that I are laying their lives on the line for me, I'm going to stay there through with it. So I just, I was one of those things where I just did not want to, back out, wimp out. Cause there were a couple guys and I should really advocate wimp out or back out. They did not want to stay. They wanted to do their time and get out. And that's their prerogative. My prerogative was I was going to stay and fight.
Did you have a rough deployment?
Well, I had a rough pre-deployment. So I was stationed at Fort Hood, Texas, or whatever it's called now. It's always going to be Fort Hood. During the Fort Hood shooting.
Oh,
The initial one in
medical, is that the
2009.
one in the medical building or something like that? Or
that was the airport, wasn't it?
It was at the SRP site. So this is the soldier readiness process site. So this is where all the soldiers are at. So kind of like a medical site where they're getting ready to deploy.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And he was a psychologist. I won't name his name because there's no point in giving him notoriety. But he was a psychologist who was, and a lot of people don't know this, like people just think he went cuckoo. He was actually radicalized. A lot of people don't realize he was radicalized. He was nothing against the Muslims, but he was a Muslim that was radicalized by an actual Al-Qaeda. He was actually in communications with an Al-Qaeda recruiter and person who actually we took out, who had some notoriety here in the United States too. And it was one of those things where it's like, you know what? That was his thing, but it shaped my life. He was an officer, so it shaped my life. I looked at my officers and went, can you be trusted?
Right. So I'm sorry to cut you off at this moment, but this does bring up something that just recently happened. By the time this airs, everybody will be well aware, but we did lose 2 National Guardsmen who were serving, and it was by an Afghanistan who was a CIA and all this stuff. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff coming out, but it just goes to show you we got to be careful. There's, when it comes to who we trust and at these positions and what their true intentions may be. But let's take a quick moment of silence for all the people who have lost their life in these tragic shootings. We'll give them a quick respect. All right, thank you. All right, sorry. Just thought we would just take a moment since you were kind of talking about that, and it just really related to me right back to this whole, careless shooting of the, losing two lives here on our soil.
Yeah. Some, there are brothers and sisters, that fall, and we need to pay them respects because they deserve it. I wear remembrance bracelets for all the ones that I've met and been involved with. I've still had people that I served with or met along the lines, whether serving in the military or in security, that, they fall to their struggles or to their addictions. And it's, we need to pay tribute to them, because so my mom was she's a Vietnam vet. So I see that side, and I know a lot of Vietnam vets, and every time I see, an old timer walking with his hat and it says Vietnam veteran, oh, did you serve there? Yep. I give them the most respect because they
Same.
were a forgotten, veterans, and they need
I
to
respect
be,
them so much. Yeah.
If
Especially
if
all that they've been through.
if your mom is ever interested, I would love to have her on here because you don't hear very many women Vietnam vets. Like there's a lot that are out there, but not a lot of them say that they are Vietnam vets. So I would love to have her on here if she would be up for it and just kind of give her side of the story, a different perspective that a lot of people don't get.
oh, you'll get a huge different side of the story, because she's not even
Yeah.
from America. She's a veteran from Australia.
Awesome.
Wow.
Yes. Yes.
That's
I
even
met a ton. So I just
amazing.
got back from a honeymoon cruise back in April, and we went to Australia, and so the whole cruise was with a ton of Australian veterans. And so that would be amazing. That would be fantastic.
I'll talk to her. I'll
Okay.
see.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was my first thing, and that's when I first hit my first addiction, and that was alcohol. I was 19 years old. And it's the military thing. I look at a 21-year-old in the barracks, be like, hey, here's $50, go down the shopette and go grab me some, beer. And it is what it is, and
It's
everybody,
our version of college frat party. Like I mean,
Yes.
Yep.
your parents aren't around no more. We're around a whole bunch of people who don't give a fuck.
Yep.
It just happens, man. It's a whole bunch of dysfunctional kids,
It's how we
coming from
socialize.
dysfunctional lives, like, yeah, woo,
It's how we celebrate, it's how we socialize, and it's how we cope. It's
Yep.
everything. Yep.
Yeah.
trauma bonding is a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So I started drinking really bad. And it really hit me because my unit had just got back from Iraq, and they were going through reverse SRP. And so it was like, and I was in the rear attachment at the time, and like I was going over to the SRP getting schedules. I was calling, trying to figure it. So for me, like, I walked right past that guy's door the day before.
Mm.
So for
So
me, I had that.
he actually worked there.
Yes.
Oh, so it wasn't just someone who, like, came on, it was like, oh, that makes it even more intense, yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
for me, I just had this whole, because what they do is at SRP is they rotate through units, whether, they have their civilian contractors there, but they also have units that rotate through to do like their clinicals and their stuff like that. So yeah, so for me, I saw that and I was just like, man, it just, it messed me up in the head, and I just was not, I was not ready for that kind of, like, I was prepared for the fight that I could see, but this is something where it was like,
Right here
this
on
was not a fight.
home, in your
Yeah.
soil. I mean, dude, it could have been anybody at this, being in the wrong building at the wrong time, and it's just, I imagine, so many things start to run through your head, dude. Like, if it could
Yeah.
happen in this building, what could happen in this fucking building? You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's wild that it happens on. This was on a base, right? It was,
Yeah.
is
Yep.
on base. One of
It's
the least places you ever expect something to happen and implode, so to speak,
So for people who don't know, the SRP, what is it? The Soldier Readiness
Processing site.
processing site. And so that's when people are getting ready to deploy, or also when they're coming back. It's the area where they have to do their medical checks, they have to do their emotional checks, they have to do their making sure all their financial stuff. That's also where people do, if I remember correctly, that's where they sign the living will and all of that stuff. So it's that is where soldiers are in the most vulnerable place, because they are getting ready to sign their life away, literally. Like, we've already signed on to join the military, but this is like, hey, we are getting ready. That's the readiness, right? We are getting ready to deploy. And so it is like your mindset, you are such a vulnerable place. So just somebody coming in there, just being a dick, that would have been enough. But somebody coming in there and actually like making a mess of things the way that that guy did, like, that is even worse, because now you're not only like shaky getting ready to deploy, but now you don't know who you can trust, which is what Steven was just saying. You don't know who you can trust. You're already traumatized before you even go over there. So I can't even imagine what you guys were going through there.
And I think the least thing they were expecting is something to happen at this moment in, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, they're all in their minds focused on something else, and the last thing they think there's someone that's in, that's right there on base is take their life.
Yeah.
Yeah, and someone who is perceived as a battle buddy, in uniform.
Mm. Yeah.
It wasn't like he was dressed
What rank
up.
was he?
He was a major.
Wow.
So an 04, yeah. And the
Major
thing that
out of
really irritates me and is the CID and the DIA, they kind of dropped the ball. There was warning signs back when he was at Walter Reed.
Oh.
Was he just kind of starting to spew off some just like really bad
rhetoric?
things?
He was hitting rhetoric and ideology in stuff about like, hey, we need you to do a presentation for medical, something with psychological, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, he's spewing off rhetoric about how the war is a holy war against Islam and all this stuff. Like, and this is open source intel. Anybody can go and look this up. I actually had to write reports on this for my college degree.
Wow.
That's crazy. So that was what it was like, getting ready to deploy. How was your actual deployment?
Well, first day in the country, we got mortared and rocketed. So that was a real like, well, welcome to the war kind of thing. Yeah, and it was funny. I had a buddy who just retired. He actually just retired 20 years. Had a buddy, and we were in the showers, and I was in the middle of my shower, and also we hear rocket attack, and hit, so initially I got like crashed down, and he's out there just, this is his third tour. He's out there just drying off, and I'm like, dude, he's like, welcome to the war. And I was just like, bro, you're cut from a different cloth. And by the time I left, it was the same thing. Like, we had these newbies.
You stop hiding. You stop hiding. Your heart stops jumping. You're like, well, this is just normal. If I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, I was there when it was really popping in 2003. That's exactly how it got for us in those Scud alarms, and it's like, fuck it, if it hits us, we're done, son.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, that was the first thing, and then within a couple of weeks, we lost, or not even a couple of weeks. It was like, within like 1-2 weeks, we lost our first guy. And then we didn't really. Then we had a bunch of guys getting a lot of contact. We were constantly having threats, and I was constantly, the bases I was on, they were constantly having threats, whether they were IEDs, stuff like that. It was, but what I did, I was bouncing around a lot because of what I did. I had to go to different places and link up with different units and stuff like that. So it was like that, and then so I was over there during what they would call the second surge. So you had the first surge, which was in Iraq in 2006. The second surge was when we went in Afghanistan. This was in the 2011 to 2012-13 era, where they were pushing forces there to try to quell the resurgence of the Taliban. And then also I was there during the Arab Spring. So we started seeing uprisings, and we had problems at Bagram and Bagram Air Base. There was issues there. It was nuts. It was popping off like crazy. And then like I said, at this time we started seeing these third party enemy state actors starting to get involved in the AO. So it was pretty crazy. But this is also right after, like, I went into Afghanistan in the end of June. So this is in 2011. So this is right after UBL's assassination in Pakistan. So there was still a lot of like people trying to, attack us to like, as like retaliatory stuff. We were seeing that too.
Hmm. Yeah, and I imagine you guys had to learn how to you guys really had to start learning how to pretty much profile guys and stuff like that, and
Yep.
Because they're kind of a hard group to. They don't really wear uniforms and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And they really just blend in, and a lot of times they're all hello to you during the day, and then at nighttime they're blowing things up, or even blowing off IEDs during the day. I mean, it's a wild place. Now, Afghanistan, I was in in Kuwait and Iraq. There, I imagine, I remember them doing the prayers and all the holy things that they were doing. Did you guys have to do that a lot over there too? Is there a lot of I don't know, like every couple hours or something, a loudspeaker, dude? Just the prayer starts coming.
Yeah, yep. They're very heavily, they are a Muslim country. They're heavily, and they're very, where I was at, I was in Kandahar. So it was I would say about 90% of Afghanistan is Sunni. So we had a lot of Sunni but they're still, because of Iran, pushes up against like Herat and Nizram provinces. We do have some Shia, but a lot of it was Sunni. And so we would a lot of call prayers. So yeah, getting used to that and hearing that, and then yeah, it was, a lot of stuff was popping off, and then the other thing we had happen there when I was there was in my AO was we had what was called the Panjway Massacre. So this is when an Army staff sergeant, I believe, he just went cuckoo for his Coke Plus. A lot of people think, a lot of people are, and, there's rumors that it was because of the malaria pills, that those pills were causing him to have hallucinations and issues. And he went off into Panjway and ended up massacring a bunch of civilians. I think it was like around like 12 or 15 civilians. And he ended up, he's actually charged. I think he's sitting in Leavenworth right now with the guy from 09. And so, we had all that happen.
These are in the Army as well?
Yeah, he was in the Army. Yeah, he was.
Because, dude, the same thing happened to another Army dude and I think this was in 03, threw a nade in the tent and blew up everybody, his whole unit.
I'm laughing because that you know what the crazy thing that you're talking about, that happened to my cousin's unit, the lieutenant colonel.
Bro,
wow.
yeah, I'm just like, wow, does the Army
Small
lose
world.
their mind or what? Because
Oh yeah,
do they not do a good job like picking these guys? Because damn, dude, I've heard this now. Like now that you're saying this, I'm like, oh man, that really reminded me of the dude who just naded the whole fucking tent.
Yeah, he threw his grenade in. Yeah.
Here's
Wow.
the thing, that some people don't realize. Okay, and we've talked about it. There was a lot of unit corruption in my unit when I deployed, and we had one of my battle buddies that I deployed with on here, and we were talking about that the other day. But here is the thing that a lot of people don't realize. Soldiers are people too, which means that there are assholes everywhere, and that's the best way to put it, right? But just because we're trained doesn't mean that we don't have our own traumas that we are fighting. And some people handle it by hurting other people, some people handle it by hurting themselves. Some people with the training, they learn how to cope with it. but other people give in to the darkness, and sometimes it's not that they are, they're not purposely trying to be assholes. It's just they have unchecked trauma that they have gotten lost into. And so then, oh, hey, this sounds like a great idea. And it's because their brain's not firing correctly because of their own issues, their own trauma, or their own mental health problems. Go ahead,
So
Brian.
in the army, I imagine, I don't know if this is could ring a little true, but you guys obviously are. I think you guys have the largest amount of people
Yeah.
in the armed forces. So my next point is maybe some of these people get lost within their units because there might be a lot of them, right? So because in the Marine Corps, we're I mean, we're considered a smaller, but our units, I mean, they're not that big, but I mean, we usually, I mean, as soon as someone's starting acting out of pocket or something of the sort, you got a whole bunch of guys already there locking his ass up, right? Like, you know what I mean? So I'm just wondering if sometimes in these larger units, because I imagine in the army there's so many folks that you guys like that sometimes you just get lost in the bustle. I don't know what it is because I'm not, I just never hear this kind of stories in the Marine Corps that much where like someone went straight up AWOL on their fucking people. You know what I mean? There's
So
sometimes some friendly fire things like on a officer or some, but I don't think, in terms of taking out a whole bunch of folks, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
to that nature. I've never heard of some massacre, you
so
know.
so there's a couple different things that come to mind for me, Brian, is with the lower enlisted, we're good, many people are good at hiding. Right? They're good at hiding and they fall under the cracks because they distract with their addictions, or they're just like, well, I just have to hold on tight, drink water, drive on. I'm not allowed to show. And so in the background, they're falling apart, but they're putting on the show. There's that. But then also when you get into and I hate to say this, and I'm probably going to get slack for this, but when you get into like officers or higher enlisted, you get the good old boys club as well, where they can do no wrong. And that is something that happened, and that's one of the reasons why my command sergeant major got away for so many years, because nobody everyone gave him the benefit of the doubt. Nobody did the actual research because he had the rank and he had a sapper tab, and nobody did the actual research because they're like, oh, he's got the sapper, he can do no wrong. Come to find out, Stephen, he never went to sapper school. Yeah. And somebody who was supposedly graduated with him was like, "I don't remember you in my class. Who the heck are you?" And so then he ended up getting kicked out of Iraq. But he was our command sergeant major for a battalion. And
Wow.
so it's like you get these good old boys club where questions just aren't asked and people kind of get away with murder, and then there's just so much. Like we had that, and then we had, higher enlisted sleeping with younger soldiers. You had the higher enlisted,
Vandalization. Yeah.
sleeping with the local nationals. You had all of this kind of stuff, and like we would get in trouble for bringing alcohol in downrange, but the higher enlisted or the officers would just get out, no, no, and then there was another one where there was a captain sleeping with an E4. The E4 lost all his rank, and the captain, she got promoted into a better unit.
They usually
So
move
it's
them. Yeah, they always just
yes.
move them. That's
Yes,
all they
and so
do.
that's the thing, is they get away with murder, and then you also have the people who were shitty before deployment, which I talked about this before. We had a guy that I deployed with who was a good battle buddy, right? And come to find out, he had SA'd his kid to death before the military. But all of
Mm.
that was like he hid it so well, he ran away, but some people don't do the research very well to see what they're letting in sometimes. And
Yeah, you see
so
what I'm
just like
talking about?
anywhere,
That's what I'm saying. Like
yeah,
something
so so
there's something's not
but
going
just
right
like
with like,
but it's just like anywhere,
yeah.
like people who are traumatized are good at hiding, and that
Yeah.
is the issue.
I just think, yeah, maybe there's just too many people to deal with, and that's why they don't get exposed. I don't. It's just crazy. Like I said, I don't see you. I didn't see this stuff kind of happening in the Marine Corps. We did, like I said, there was someone out of pocket or something. It was always like, and then that person was really like they they keened in on that person and got them right, or fucking, you know what I mean? It worked itself out, but like people losing their shit never really happened.
Yeah.
Now I know we've been kind of beating the hell out of this part and stuff like that. So, um, how long were you over in total? How long were your deployment? You know, and then at what point did you see yourself getting out? Now, did you always see yourself kind of a 4 and done kind of guy, or were you going to go further? What led you to actually decide to get out?
And then I have
So
a question that goes on along with that. Okay. As you are talking about, finishing up your deployment and reintegration, I want to know that, how hard it was getting back stateside, seeing evil in people's eyes and being able to recognize it. How did you reintegrate back into civilian life, knowing what you see in people and not being able to react the way that you did while you were deployed? So I'm curious on how that transition happened, because like last time we had a guy who had to clear bombs on the road, and so we talked about how his brain in the civilian world went into everything's a threat. And so now I'm curious on, as you are finishing up your deployment and getting ready to get out, how did you transition on okay, this may be a threat, but it's not my circus, not my monkeys, or hey, maybe this isn't a threat and this is just in my mind. So kind of, yeah, as you're talking about reintegration, kind of tell us a little bit about that as well.
man, yeah, that's some deep stuff, because that's going to really get me into the weeds here with that. So get me really into the jungle. So I finished up. So I started seeing. And I'll admit it. And I've come to terms with it. Is I started getting. I got sent to combat stress because I started having nightmares while I was downrange,
Mm.
and I started having situations because a lot of the stuff was happening. And next thing you know, so I we got done with our tour. We got out. I was actually really dead set about staying in. I wanted to actually go to Special Forces. So they had in down in Texas, one of the either 19th group or 20th group guys units is in Camp Bullis, which is just down by Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio. And so they had a little detachment that was up at Fort Hood that was like a recruiter. They would have they would train you up, and they would also recruit you to go do, Special Forces assessment and selection. And the unit I was with was we had 238 Cav, and we had Charlie Company, which was a LURS unit, long range reconnaissance unit, um, and surveillance. And they were a lot of them either had short tabs or they had long tabs, and they got or they had scrolls, and a lot of these guys were coming out of, the Ranger Regiment or out of, Special Forces group. And it wasn't, oh, they got kicked out. It was, they were just too beat up to be in those units, that they're like, hey, or they've had so many tours, they're like, yeah, we need to bump you back to a tier 3 unit because you're kind of, you're not up to par with some of these younger cats, or they're just, they're aging out. And so I had a lot of guys there that were awesome, and they tough dudes, loved them to death. They were some of the best soldiers and battle blades I ever worked with were from the LURS unit. They were amazing, true professionals, true silent professionals. And and it was the only airborne unit on Fort Hood. So like they would go do jumps, all that fun stuff. We got to go hang out with them, watch them do it. Um, I had one sergeant who was like, hey, you want to come jump with us? We'll sneak you in. I'm like, I think I'm gonna get in a lot of trouble. I don't think it's gonna work. I don't think Jump Master is gonna let us do it. So anyways, so once we so I wanted to reenlist. Family circumstances happened. My older brother contracted kidney failure, and my family kept it under wraps while I was downrange, because my mom and my cousin kind of like talked, and they were like, hey, we need him to be front sight focused. He needs to be on mission. He can't be worrying about stuff back home. Because that's going to affect his life. He could die because he's distracted. So I found out through R&R. When I came home for R&R, I found out about it. So my colonel, my Fulbright colonel, he ripped up my reenlistment papers. like he was a solid, good officer who knew how to take care. He's like, nope, you need to go be with your family. You've done your service. Get the heck out. You've already extended. You didn't even need to extend. Get the heck out. Go take care of your family. That's what matters. So I did that, and then I got out, and when I got out, so we got back at the beginning of July 2012, and that was a rough day. Man, it's hit me here now a little bit. One of my buddies who I from high school, I did an A-Trap between AIT and going to my unit. A-Trap is Hometown Recruiting Assistance Program, where you go home and you help recruit. And I recruited a buddy, talked to him, and he ended up being killed in Afghanistan. He was shot in the neck by a sniper. He was from my hometown. So, and it was the day I got that. His name was Mosman.
Say that again.
Cody Mosman. And he was killed in action. He was killed in action. A good friend of mine. And I still live with that. I mean, I have a remembrance bracelet for him. I go to his grave every year on Memorial Day and on his death day to pay my respects. I make sure his grave is always clean. It's always taken care of, besides with his family. That one hurt. And it hurt too that the military, because I was in that reverse SRP where you have like 2 weeks where they got to make sure you're not going to go cuckoo for your Cocoa Puffs. That I was pissed at the Army because I wanted to come home and I wanted to bring him home. I felt like it was my duty, and I wanted to do his color guard and take care of him and put him to rest. And it still is a pain to this day that I did not get to do that. And so that hurt. And so I already had a lot of trauma. And then that was just, that was one of those things where that hit right after that. And then I didn't have a lot of time. I went through that ETS process only a couple months, and then I was out. I got back at the beginning of July, and I was out of active duty service in November 2012. Like I literally was out in 4 months. So a lot of people think, oh, that's a lot. 4 months, that's a lot. That seems like a long time. For us, it's a blur because you're doing so much. You're going through finance, dental, CIF, you're going through all this crap trying to get out.
Decompressing. You're decompressing from a year deployment.
Yeah. Well, and even if, and that's the thing is even if you're not really even decompressing, you're not even getting a chance to really decompress because you're so focused on, I got to get, XYZ done that you don't have time. And when you're on your off time, you're stressing about next day. You're worried about, okay, I gotta get this done, because I have an ETS day or a transitional leave date that I gotta meet. And you have higher ups. You got your luckily I had a great team leader, staff sergeant who was 100% backing me the whole time. And same thing with my platoon sergeants. But I had a first sergeant who was crawling down my throat trying to make sure, because this is this career guy who saw me as a quitter, kind of thing. And so I got out, and then it was hard. And like what you brought up, Marie, about the whole transition, our minds, I was driving down roads and I see trash on the side of the roads and immediately thinking IED. I would see people acting, everybody I thought that I interacted with, even people that I knew. What's their motives? What's their second and third order effects? What are they? Are they counterintelligence? Are they really the people that I need? I went into complete spy mode kind of thing, where I was thinking everybody was that thing. So
you
it
learned how
made
to
me,
not trust people real fast in your profession.
Well,
oh
and
yeah,
that's the hard thing is what you're picking up is probably correct, but not in the motive, if that makes sense. Because people are naturally manipulative. And,
yeah,
and especially more so with our traumas, right? And it's not that we're like purposely trying to hurt somebody; it's we're trying to protect ourselves. And so that's the thing that I've learned with all the therapy that I've been doing. I psychoanalyze everybody
Well,
now, and
we
I'm like, I
become
can
hyper
see, I
vigilant.
can,
We have
yes,
become super
I can, I
hyper vigilant to everything.
yes, so, like, I can see what is actually going on, but my brain takes it, "Well, they're doing it on purpose and trying to hurt me," and that's where trauma gets involved. Even though this is like a natural thing that this person is doing, this is just their own way that they're looking at life. My brain is like, "Well, that means that they are trying to hurt me," even though it's not them trying to hurt me, it's them trying to protect themselves. So I get it, Steven. Like I get that idea of you're seeing what's really going on, but then the trauma gets involved and makes you feel unsafe.
yeah, and we, especially for what I did, because a lot of people don't realize with human intelligence collections, we're out there on the ground, and sometimes we're out there, and it's literally like me and a translator with like 4 dudes or even 20 dudes surrounding me, or we're out in a bazaar and we're trying to collect intel, and it's literally we're heads on a swivel. We're like you said, hyper vigilance, Brian. About we're hyper vigilant, and so it and we're trained, and like a lot of people in the intelligence community, like especially what we do, like we're trained in surveillance, we're trained in counter surveillance, we're trained in uh surveillance detection. So like when I'd be driving home, and mind you, I live in rural Idaho. If somebody turns more than two, like follows my vehicle more than 2 turns, immediately my head's going, oh, this guy's following me. Okay, okay, where's my
Yeah.
counter ambush points, where's my where am I going to set up my ambush on this guy if he's a threat? Okay, how do I collect intel on this guy? How can I get more information? And if somebody's tailgating me really tight, same thing. My head would go into, okay, this guy's about ready to freaking clack off a VBID, and stuff like that, where we become so hyper vigilant that when we come back out into the real world, it holds us back. It really holds us back, because we then get to this point where, and I'll do this, where I got so shelled up where I didn't want to go outside. I did not want to, if it was what people would say would be like one of the most calming things. Oh, I'm just going to go for a drive, would freak me, because I was like, I'm going to die. I walk outside, unless I'm in my little hidey hole, I'm going to die. And that's, it took, and what helped me was I was already getting into martial arts when I was in the service. I love combatives, and it was such a good outlet. I got to beat up on my buddies, that kind of thing, and they get to beat up on me, more or less. And then they, for me, that was the way for me to kind of break out of it. So I found some mixed martial arts gyms, and I started doing that, and I started training, and I started getting into this mindset of, okay, I am the master of myself. Like I can still be okay. And it was a way to decompress, and it was a way to take a lot of this aggression and a lot of this anxiety and push it outwards into a bag, or into sparring or whatever it was. And so I did that, and I did it for years. Like people don't realize, like 2012 till 2020, I was doing, and I still do it to this day. It's just not as devoted as I was, but yeah, years and years of it. And one thing is crazy. A lot of people are like, well, yeah, like me going for a walk down the side of the road is very calming. And I was like, what's calming for me? Getting into a cage and getting my face punched in. And they're like,
That's my
how is
therapy session.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, they're like, how is that calming? And I said, because this can get tuned out. And all I am is I'm right here with the person against me, and I just have to focus on that person, nothing else.
Well, and it's a controlled environment. You're not actually
Yes.
in danger. You are in control of what's going on. If it gets to a point where it's too much, you can say, okay, I'm done. You can
Yep.
stop, and so you are in control of the whole situation, because that's the thing a lot of people don't know,
Not
like when
unless
you're doing
you
martial
just
arts.
you don't tap out and you just go black out. Either one is going to stop
Well,
it though.
Well, when you're in training with martial arts, the thing is everything's about being safe. It's doing it in a safe way so you don't hurt yourself. And so
Yep.
when you're in training, you at every like I did a few months or a few months of taekwondo myself, and like that idea was that it is all controlled. You want to make sure that you're doing your hand motions the way that you're supposed to, and you've got to be safe and making sure that you are also grounded. Before you start, we did meditation exercises before we started every time. And so it's all about making sure you're in a good mindset. It's making sure that you're physically safe, making sure that you are strong. And so it's very controlled. And so I get it, Stephen. When I was doing it, I felt so wonderful when I was in there.
Yeah.
So,
It
Steven,
was
let me ask you a quick couple questions
yeah.
about all this stuff. Now, during this time, bro, where's your mental health at? Where's your, how are you dealing with, like, I get you're hyper vigilant to things now. How are your relationships with your family, with your loved ones, friends, things like that? Where are you at during your transition out?
Um,
Before we do that, can we just take 1 minute to pause?
Yeah, sure. All right, so we're back, and we'll go ahead and have Steven talk about how his mental health was. We talked about how his hypervigilance and stuff like that, when he was driving and things like that. Now we're going to talk more about his personal relationships with his friends, family, loved ones. I don't know if you're married, all that stuff. It's really a big thing. I think a lot of us veterans struggle with is our relationships outside of the military, especially when it comes to just trying to get yourself right back into the community and hanging out with your friends again when you go out to the bar maybe for the first time, and just seems so different, right? So we'll let you talk about that.
yeah. So for me, I was lucky enough. I had a military family that could kind of understand a little bit, so
Right.
it helped. But they were still like my extended family. They were badgering me. Hey, what happened? What can you tell us about this? Can you tell us about that? And for me, and again from the intelligence community, it's like I can't tell you a whole lot because it's
Sure.
classified.
Right.
I could tell you about, hey, yeah, I could tell about firefights and explosions and all that kind of stuff, but I can't tell you about like people, places, things, and locations because it's classified. And like I can't even talk that until I'm 2 years old. So it's like I'm sorry, and they would look at it like I was just being very, very secretive and
Obstinate.
apprehensive. Yeah, and being very, very disconnected, and that made me become disconnected. And then I was still dealing with like I was starting to have really bad nightmares. I was irritability. A lot of that was happening, and it was irritability not mainly because it was like I came from a structured environment with the military to chaos. And even with the
Right.
chaos in the military, what I was used to, this is different. It's like I was so used to I could tell somebody with I was an E4, but I was a senior specialist, and they treat me like a corporal because of my seniority, and people respected me. So it was like I could give a private an order, even though I was lower enlisted. And everybody who's been in the military knows the E4 mafia runs the lower enlisted. And so for me, I could be, since I was like one of the head E4 guys, that was like I could give a private order, like, hey, this is the shit that just rolled downhill. We gotta go do this. It would get done, and I'd say, hey, if you have to do it sketchy, do it sketchy. If you have to do it right, but get it done.
So
And
real quick, I just wanted to say for civilians who may be listening, So the E1, E2, E3, E4, that's called considered lower enlisted. You've got your fuzzy, you've got your this is in the army.
That's
So you've got
Army,
E,
yeah, I was gonna
E
say,
E1,
I'll tell it
E1 fuzzy private, E2 PV2, E3 is PFC, E4 is specialist, but you can get a lateral promotion with E4 where you get corporal, and so that is an actual like NCO, non-commissioned officer. And so you're technically still only an E4. And so it's hard because you're like still the battle buddy, but also you have that NCO power. And
Yeah.
so, but you're also the baby of NCOs, and they don't really see you as an NCO because E5 is NCO. And so you're in this weird place right now. So I get it. I knew a lot of corporals that were kind of stuck in that middle where you're like, well, I'm your friend, but also do what I say.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
in the Marine Corps, the E4, you are a corporal and you are a non-commissioned officer in the Marine Corps. So, E1, E2, E3, those are not non-commissioned. I mean, not non-commissioned, but those are the lower enlisted. Then once you become a corporal, you become a non-commissioned officer in the Marine Corps, and that's a hard part, man, because you go from being a lance corporal and you're just hanging out with your boys, and to now they're the corporal. Now you're expected to be in charge of these fools you were just running amok with. You know what I
Yep.
mean? So
And that's where it is with the specialist. You're either the specialist where you're still in the lower enlisted, or you're the corporal, so you're a non-commissioned officer. And so you're just in that middle gray zone.
yeah, and they and just for those who are listening, I say E4 mafia. It's not a mafia. It's a joke. It's an
No,
No
we're
way, yeah,
we're
yeah.
the mafia, dude. I am E4 mafia all the way, dude. They tried to get me to go to my non-commissioned officer course when I was deployed, and I was like, nope, I'm staying E4 because E4 is where you have responsibility, but you also can push that responsibility lower, and so you can,
Mhm.
we call it the sham,
The sham
We
shield.
never even
Yeah.
heard of the E4
Yeah.
mafia thing. I never heard about it until I started,
Yep.
coming in the veteran community. Then I was like, E4 mafia. And then I
Dude,
then I
dude, we
got
were
the
we were
whole
we were the sham squad is what it is. So you're good at your job, and so you get responsibilities, but also you can pass it down. But like for me, I didn't get my E5 until the day I got out. They because I got medically discharged, they gave me my E5 because if I would have stayed in, I would have gotten promoted. Right. But yeah, I fought. I did not want to go to the NCO board. I was like, nope, I wanted to stay my E4 because there's more responsibility that comes in. And the thing is like the minute you get over that and you go into that E5, the lower enlisted stop trusting you so much and they stop talking to you. And I was always the person that
sell out.
people came and talked to. Like even the new sergeants would come to me because of, the ability that I had to explain things, right? And
Yep.
because of the mental health, resources that I could be for them. But I did not. Yeah, E4 Mafia all the way. I love it.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like E4 mafia, like we're not a mafia. It's just
Yeah.
a bunch of us getting together and we're doing the right. It's just a bunch of us getting together and we're going, how can we, how can we run this without the NCOs running it, kind of thing, and that's how it was, and especially when it was out of sight, out of mind kind of stuff. Oh yeah, we got stuff taken care of, and I right alongside with you, Marie, like I was offered multiple times, hey, go to the NCO board. Even like, hey, we're gonna send you to the combat board and you're gonna get promoted. No matter what, you're gonna get promoted. And I was like, but for me, by this time I'd already my Marine list plate started being ripped up. I'm like, no, give it to somebody who's gonna be staying in for a little while. Give it to them. They deserve it. I'm getting out. Why should I collect an extra little bit when they should? Send them. And that was me being selfless, and part of that selfless service is I was like, no, there's people that deserve more than me. But it's funny because, like you said about that responsibility, I when I got out, they, it's funny, all my cat cards and all my ID cards was, and even to this day, it still says when it's on my veteran ID, it still says corporal on it. And I'm like, I was okay, cool, don't care, kind of thing. I don't want to have that. Corporal was horrible for us in the army, but yeah, I got out, and it was just one of those things where like I wanted to have good relationships, but that apprehension and that like that seeing the worst of humanity and not trusting anybody, and everybody has a second or third motive, and then seeing it, not only with my battle buddies, but with people I was involved with overseas. It was hard. And I was struggling with like nightmares and night terrors, and
Mhm.
luckily, like I said, I had people that I were very good advocacies, and luckily I also had really good resources in the sense of with like getting into the VA and getting in our my state advocate, not the federal VA, but the actual state level. I had a great advocacy there that were taking care of me, looking after me, and they were making sure I was getting to the right resources. But um I kind of did this whole thing where like, and in the veteran community we get it a lot, and in the military community we get it a lot, where it's like, oh well, shut up, drive on, change your socks, drink water, you on mission, and that's how I saw myself as, oh, I have these problems, but I have to deal with them. I got to continue on. I still got to stay focused on the mission. And so I didn't really reach out with my mental health. Actually, and I'll be honest, and I'll tell everybody here, reach out sooner. It is better to reach out sooner. I did not do, I got diagnosed with PTSD. I went through all that stuff, but I didn't try to go through therapy or anything. I thought, oh, my martial arts did help me a lot with my therapy. It did. It really helped me push me in the right direction. But actually getting professional help, I didn't start doing that until about 2 years ago, when I
Awesome.
actually
I mean,
went.
not awesome that it took so long, but awesome that you're in it now. That's
Oh
amazing.
yeah, I'm in it now, and I the great thing is the VA has such great resources where, like, where I live, I'm in such a rural environment. It takes me almost an hour to get to my VA clinic to see somebody. So the telehealth, that is such a great thing. But
Yeah,
also they have
that's been
apps.
great.
Yeah, but they also have apps. Like one app I have is it's cognitive behavioral therapy app that I use, and I love that app. It's a great app. They also have one for insomnia. I use that app also. It just is
Nice.
it's helped me stay grounded, and it kind of focus. It helps me kind of focus on it versus, well, I just got to wait till I get to talk to my therapist next session. Now it's like, no, I actually have something I can do. I have control back in my hands, which we as veterans, that's a big thing, is control.
Yeah.
Control is huge. So, and then, like you talked about, Marie, about being in the martial arts, being in a cage in that control environment, that was such a big thing for me. Was, oh, I'm taking back control of my emotions. I'm taking back control of my mental health, and having and being able to control, and that's why I love you talked about earlier about you might miss butchered the name, but BJJ, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. That I love Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because it's ground fighting, it's grappling, where I can actually ball somebody up, I can grapple somebody, and I can control them and manipulate their body to do what I want them to do. And it was just like, oh, cool. I can not only control myself, I control somebody else, but also it teaches you to submit to somebody else's control and be able to be like, hey, and martial arts also helped me to be trusting, start building trust again with my fellow man, because when somebody's sitting there beating on me, and they're pounding me in the dirt, and that I can trust that if I tap out, it's it's done. I'm done with it, and they're gonna stop. And it comes back to, at first, did not have that. I was very, very apprehensive. I was like, like, even if I tapped out, or they, being the bell goes, I'd still be, covering up, trying to protect myself, because I'll be like, is this guy gonna just keep wailing on me like I'm a freaking chunk of meat, or is he actually gonna stop? So it really helped me, and but and luckily, and the nice thing was martial arts actually got me reconnected with one of my best friends now, and we grew up together, and he was doing martial arts too, and we reconnected, and it was just like awesome, great things that we and I mean, he's my best friend. Like, I talk to him daily, I hang out with him. He's actually, so I run my business, and then I work for his business part-time as a security consultant, and helping out with security things, and it's just one of those things. And it was one of those things where I was able to build relationships with using martial arts, and definitely the meditation and going into the traditions of martial arts, of looking at, seeing yourself inward instead of outward. And then the other thing also is it helped me really come to terms of a thing they learn in Japanese martial arts, Bushido, which is the warrior spirit, and seeing and really connecting with the warrior spirit of, well, I am still a warrior. Like I see all of us as still warriors. We're all still warriors, but how do we see? And for me, I looked at it, and I looked at the ancient warriors, the samurai, the knights of ancient, of ancient times, during the medieval times, and how did they cope with the constant warfare and the constant stuff? And the one I really gravitate was the samurai. About, well, they used a lot of meditation. They really focused on self control and self preservation over destruction, and that there is a higher purpose. And so it really helped me with that, and getting into that, and the meditation really helped out with that, and I'm looking inward, and that's where that really helped me. And then competing was just that thing for me, when, like you guys mentioned about me doing, you know being in, winning nationals and the Pan Ams, and I was this close to going to the Olympics. I was on, for Pan Ams. I was with Team USA, but I was this close to going to team trials and going for the Olympics in 2020. And
And then
I
everything shut
for,
down.
and everything shut down. COVID happened, and all that crap happened. But for me, I look at it as the way for me competing. It was me to actually express, like, hey, this is who I am now. I'm not like, yeah, I am this warrior. I do have this, and it is such a significant part of me, and it still is to this day. And I advocate it and everything about, like I have people, like, I actually just have a kid, when I was running the martial arts gym with my buddy. I had a kid who I trained in boxing, and he graduated, and then he wanted to go into the military. And I was like, cool, awesome. Hey, I'll train you. I'll teach you what it's like to go through boot camp, through basic. I'll give you a little drill sergeant mode, kind of just get you kind of prepared, but I'll teach you how to shoot. I'll teach you how to rook. I'll teach you how to march. I'll teach you the facing movements, just so it's going to be easy for you. And he actually was gonna be a 13 Bravo artilleryman, and I actually told him, I was like, "No, dude, you're too smart for that." And he's a human. He's just like me. He does the exact same
Oh,
job
no
as me, and
shit.
he
Nice.
just got back from his first deployment. And
Wow.
great kid.
Wow.
And I'm like, good for you, And so for me, I even though I had some rough times in the military, I don't say, hey, don't go in the military. Hey, if it's what you want to do, go for it, man.
Sure.
That's your thing. Just realize it's going to be rough. It's going to be rough in, and it's going to be rough out. But and I try to always connect with other veterans, especially, and just, and especially for what I do now, I try to really connect with veterans, because, you know, those who, like, might not see an outlet, like, hey, I kind of do like what Chris Kyle did. Oh, hey, let's go out to the range, let's do some shooting. Let's go out and shoot. I'm a certified, firearms instructor, so it's like, hey, let's go out to the range, let's go do some shooting. Or hey, let's, and also, I like connecting with older veterans, the ones from, like, Desert Storm, or during the 90s into the early 2000s, that they lost some of their skills, like, whether it's, land nav, or medical, or whatever. And I can connect with them, and I can give it back to them, and it brings back those, those fond memories, that at least some of the fond memories of, oh, I remember learning this in the military, this was so cool. And they get those skills back, and then they feel that sense of pride again. And it's nice to see that. It makes me happy that, like, okay, I can give that back to the veteran community, sort of thing.
So I've got a couple questions, and then I want you to talk more about your business and what you're doing now. But before we move on to that, I one question is, do you want to shout out any of the programs in your local area with the martial arts that you've been in? Do you want to shout them out, give them credit so that other people and tell people where you're at? And so, if anybody in your local area wants to join some of those programs. So, if you want to share that, but then also, I know you kind of said that you struggled with your personal relations, but we didn't really hear about your personal relations. So, I'm just curious over these years, are you married? Do you have kids? Do you have relationships with your extended family? So, those are the two questions that I have.
So with the advocacy, yeah, I would say any person that is listening, the great thing is there's actually a really great organization. I'm not directly involved with them. I know one of the guys who runs the program. It's called We Defy Foundation. It's a martial arts program for jiu-jitsu for veterans specifically. And what they do is they help get veterans into jiu-jitsu as an outlet for therapy. Um, they're all over, but they're very big in northern Utah right now. They're very, very huge. They got some great links with some great jiu-jitsu gyms out there. Like I know like West Side Jiu-Jitsu in Ogden. They're very, very big advocacy of them. So if you're down in central, or not central, but like in northern Utah, but down towards the Provo area, highly look at the gym I go to, which is Agima Jiu-Jitsu and MMA. It's run by
What's it
my
called?
black
I'm
belt.
I'm writing
What
this
was that?
down. What's it
Okay.
called?
Agema, 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 or Aegma. Yeah, Aegma, Agema Jiu-Jitsu. They are great. They're run by my black belt, Dana Aristizabal, and his wife. Shout out to them. They just had their second kid. Congratulations, Dana and Amy. Um, then it's also co-run by Court McGee, who
I
he's not
love
a
Court.
veteran.
I know Court. I know Court in person. Court is
Yeah,
amazing. He is so fantastic. He's very vocal about his stuff. He does a
yep,
lot of advocacy for recovery, and
yep,
he is just an amazing man. I know him personally. Shout out Court, you rock. I love him.
yeah.
He's actually MMA and
Yes,
like on
he's in the UFC.
like
Yep,
very, very well known guy. And he is
yep.
just an amazing guy. Hi, Court.
And
Please, just know that we love you.
yeah,
I
Court's a
love
good
Court.
friend of mine. I love Court. Yeah, Court trains with me. I actually helped train with Court to
Small
get him ready for a couple.
world.
Yeah, to get trained up for a couple of UFC fights. Yeah, so Dane's his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt when
Okay.
he was getting coming up, and then Dane's mine, and so yeah, he used to ball me up, and his nickname is true. It's Crushed Her Furries, and he'll crush you into the dirt. And I outweigh him by like 100 pounds, and he'll maul me. But yeah, they're great. There's so many things out there in my local area. I'm in Preston, Idaho. We do have a jiu-jitsu gym here. It's called Asset Jiu-Jitsu. They're great. They're big. They're about. They actually advocate veterans and law enforcement to, and that's the thing is, even though we're talking about veterans, it doesn't even have to. There's so many first responders out there that I work with that they struggle with mental health. They struggle with
Absolutely.
PTSD, and
Oh,
it's
for
like
sure.
they need the resources too.
Good
And
point.
that's the one thing I think is that I think we need to, we're really pushing veterans, but I would love to see the veterans community kind of rally behind those first responders and
It'd be
and
great to
and be
bridge
there.
that gap with the two, right? Because I mean,
Well, it's funny that you're bringing that up because it's something that I am considering and Brian and I have yet to actually sit and talk about it. At some point I would like to host some special episodes where we have just like local first responders, possibly come on as well. So I would like to bridge that gap because, uniform is a uniform,
I've
and
Mhm.
I've opened up my show to them. I've
yeah.
had sheriffs on. I've had a couple guards on, CEO, so
Yes.
definitely it's just, it's harder to find those guys and gals. They there is a community of them, but a lot of them, it's like they still you don't see a lot of stuff out there that help them, right? So
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
exactly.
And
that I've been noticing a lot of veteran organizations, nonprofits who are now including
yes.
veterans and first responders, which I think it's a great thing because it a lot of the first responders are veterans,
Yes,
as a
that's
matter
what
of
I was
fact.
gonna say. I'm actually in talks with a guy, in my neighborhood who is a police officer who used to train veterans specifically, in the uniform. And then, like, the thought that just went through my mind, we talk about in the military where we all bleed green, but all of us first responders bleed red, white, and blue.
Yeah. And that's
Sorry, that
where
was
it's
just
like
cheesy.
anybody that raises their hand, or and a lot of them, like in the police force, they swear a very
Yeah,
similar oath to us that we swear as a swear of
Yes.
enlistment. And I
absolutely.
tell them, like, I look at him, well, like our local sheriff here in the county I am, he's a National Guardsman, and I say, hey, I'm gonna hold you to the oath that I swore, and you better. So that means you swore you swore to the Constitution, so you better be constitutionally minded. But I always tell them, like, but hey, if your guys are in a need and need backup, don't think I'm not going to come running and helping, because we all bleed red, white, and blue. It doesn't matter if I wore a uniform that was camouflage and you wear one that's blue, tan, or green. It doesn't matter. What's in our souls is what matters.
Yep. Dude,
And
this is
so,
this is this is really awesome. Like, thank you for giving us these foundations, or these programs that work with veterans and first responders. Like this is going to be awesome. I'm developing a resource list to give to at some point. It's going to be a huge database. I've got a guy in Florida and his sister who are going to be helping me out with this actually, and we are going to develop this database that other programs have already started, but my goal is to get it into the CAPS program when you get out of the military. And so you can say, here's the state that I'm going to, and then we can print out a list of all the local resources for veterans. And so
mhm.
this is going to go on that list. So thank you for that. And
Yeah, no problem.
yeah. So I know that
So
we've
your
talked
second
a lot about,
question,
yes, I was just going to bring that up.
yeah,
Yes. Thank you.
yeah, your second question. So it was hard. So in the military, because of like a lot of the secrecy we had to have with human intelligence, they kind of pushed like, hey, if you're single, try to stay single. And then obviously they would do the whole typical, lower enlisted, where they'd be like, don't go marry a stripper for BAH. Like, don't go do that. You know, don't go do a contract marriage so you can get off base and get BAH. So for me, I kind of was like, I had, in growing up in a very Christian community, I very was raised of like, find the one, find that your soulmate.
I think
So
we were raised in the same community.
yeah, if you hint, hint, wink, wink, 3 letters. Um,
Yeah.
so I kind of went, well, I don't, I want that. And so I tried to, and coming out of the military with dealing with my struggles, I felt like, and again, and a lot of veterans, I know a lot of veterans are out there, because I know if I did it, I know there's a lot out there like me. We feel a
Sure.
burden. We feel burden to others. And I didn't want to put my burdens on somebody else, even though now I'm looking back at it saying, no, that's, if they want it, if they were like, hey, well, talk to me, or hey, let's work through this, they're inviting that on. And we, as this, well, we're strong, we're tough, we're military, showing emotion as weakness, that's wrong. And I want to advocate anybody who's currently in the military, or veterans. It's not a weakness, guys. It is. We're human. We're emotional wrecks. let it flow. But don't let it control you. But let it kind of work with it. Don't hold it back, but don't let it control you. You have a
It will
nice
start to
balance.
control you if you do hold it back. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
so I think that too goes hand in hand. The control comes from not allowing yourself to speak about it, and then it starts to control you.
Well, and
Yeah.
then we have to like what you were just saying, we have to allow loved ones the autonomy to accept all of us. And if they don't, then that's on them. That's their choice. But we have to be genuinely our own. This is something that I struggle with, right? Be genuinely who we are, feel our everything that we're going through. Do our best to not take it out on people, but be who we are and allow our loved ones the autonomy to handle it because most of them can handle it a lot better than we think.
Yeah, I agree. Um, so I struggled with that. I'm not married, I don't have kids. I kind of they're actually running tests. The VA is actually running tests right now. They might think because of my exposure to like the burn pits and stuff like that, and being around, certain, chemicals and stuff like that, they think that I'm not even able to have kids, and it sucks. But that's where there's adoption if I decide I want to get married and have kids. But right now I'm just trying to find somebody. For me, it's like relationship wise, the biggest thing is trying to find somebody, one, who can accept my past but also can accept me in my present state and also what I'm looking for in the future. And that's the hardest thing, is and it comes down to patience. And for me, I kind of, and you talked about it, Marie, with your poem, which was absolutely gorgeous and loved it. That was awesome. um was turning, my thing is, I a couple about 2 years ago, I turned myself to God, and to Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, and I'm not going to get too religious on this, but I look at it as, well, he has a plan for each of us. Obviously it was part of the plan that I would meet you, Marie, and get to talk to you and be on this podcast, and which was awesome. And if his plan is he's going to, kind of if he puts someone in my life that is meaningful and that is going to be that connection, then I won't shy away from it. But it's not going to be one of those things where I'm not going to look. I'm still going to look, because he gives us free agency. But I kind of go back to what they say in the military with, well, if the Marine Corps, and I immediately hear this from my Marine buddies, well, if the Marine Corps wanted you to have a wife, they'd issue you one.
Yeah, I was gonna say that earlier. I'm glad you went
Yep.
ahead and said it for me because that is the fucking fact.
So
So
Uh,
so I wanted to ask, so for myself, I got sober 9 years ago. And, I like to say that I was out in the great and spacious for a long time. And for those of you in the LDS religion, you'll understand that it means like you were out in the world, for a long time, with all of my addictions and stuff like that. And I got sober 9 years ago. And in my sobriety, it started my journey into spirituality, which has overcome my entire life. And it has just made things so much easier. And like, in every poem that I write, it's here is the darkness and the frustration, but here is my faith and here is my joy and here is my love. And I know for me, it has been such a huge part. Like when I got sober is when I finally was able to open my heart up and open up my mental health. And I've been in the psych unit twice. I've been in an intensive outpatient program for PTSD and food addiction. I've worked through a lot of stuff. Um, do you find that as you started getting back into
oh,
spirituality that it helped lift your spirits more, that it helped you find did I freeze? Sorry.
yeah.
Um, can you hear me? Okay.
yeah.
But yeah, do you find that as you have gone back into spirituality that you're able to handle life a little bit better? Was that a part of the influence that brought you into therapy a couple years ago? Like how does the spirituality meld into your journey that you're on right now?
Yeah. So talking about sobriety, sobriety is a big part of my thing. Now, I was lucky enough my sobriety coincided with me going down range. So because they really push, like, hey, no tobacco, no alcohol, all that stuff. So I was like, hey, I'm just gonna go cold turkey on everything, and I'm still am to this day. Have not
Awesome.
broken my sobriety, and
Wow.
that's so it's
Right.
man, 13 years, 13
God
years
damn.
sober. So, no,
Awesome.
14 years sober. So, it helped me with that. I would say, when it comes to my spirituality with coming into my therapy it was, so I ended up getting really, really sick a couple years ago. I was, and it comes back to the toxins. It was this toxin exposure, and anybody that's listening, any veterans, if you were over there, whether you were in Desert Storm, whether you were in Vietnam with the Agent Orange, or you were there during the Gulf War on Terror around the burn pits, reach out, go use the PACT Act, get the resources because it affects you. Like I've been out by the time I found out about this stuff. I've been out 10 years and it had finally caught up to me. It finally the toxins had finally gotten to the point where it was affecting my health. It can, and they say it can take time for the toxins
I
to become more noticeable
I
over
don't want to
time because
scare you or anything, but yeah, the stories are starting to come out a lot about the the toxins from these burn pits, and
My friend has
um,
non-Hodgkin's lymphoma right now, and
so
he's fighting
there, yeah, there was a sergeant who just passed away, and his wife is advocating for him and all that stuff, but he died from just overexposure to the toxins, and something that a lot of people don't understand when it comes to the military, we don't get an option, right? Like when you're given an order to do something, and if it's as simple as going and stewing up some shit and trash, um, as a PSC or a private or a lance corporal, you don't get a choice. When you get those orders, you can't say, "Oh, I don't want to do that." There's none of that, right? So,
yeah.
something that a lot of people don't understand is some of you guys and gals over there, didn't get some of these injuries are showing up 20 years later,
Mhm.
that we didn't even realize that you would be experiencing these type of things. Now, I'm hoping to God that the military starts to learn about these things and gives men and women the proper equipment if they're going to go have to do something that is like stewing up crap. Because no way, dude. None of you guys had no time to go get in a gas mask or anything, and they're going to have you wear a gas mask. You guys are over there just thinking you're burning something, and no, nothing's happening to you.
They even told us they're like when we got issued our gas mask, they're like, "Oh, you're not going to Iraq. You're not going to have to worry about chemical agents or anything like that. You're going to Afghanistan. There's like unless China or Russia or Iran do something, you're fine. Don't even worry about your gas mask." Like, and it's kind of like people, and I'll bring up a movie reference because a lot of people probably know it. It's the Black Hawk Down when they're getting ready to go out and they're like, "Oh, you're not going to need that, man. We're only going to be out for so long." It's the same
Right?
thing. They're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, you're not going to need that, man. You're fine." But we go over there and we're around those burn pits, and I was on Kandahar Airfield, which was the largest base in southern Afghanistan, and we had these huge towers of freaking just constant burn like furnaces that that's all and we'd always have smoke over our heads or this soot, and we would always breathe in crazy crap. And so I would advocate anybody that is dealing with this stuff, go see your doctors, see your state advocates,
That's
whether
I was
it's
I was just gonna
oh
say, for those of you who don't know, the Veteran Benefits Administration. So there's two different sides of VA. There's Veteran Benefits Administration and Veteran Health Administration. So if you want to get your disability, go to the Veteran Benefit Administration. If you have an exposure, even if it wasn't a deployment, if you have toxic exposure and you have symptoms or not even symptoms, but if you think that you have an exposure, you can go to the VBA, the Veteran Benefits Administration, to get your disability. But also there is what's called the PACT Act. And so if you're having symptoms from something that's a toxic exposure, you can go to the VA, the Veteran Health Administration, and you can be seen for the symptoms from that exposure. But if you want to get the actual disability so you get paid for it, that'll be the Veteran Benefits Administration. And what you need to do is something called a TARA, Toxic Exposure Risk Assessment. And so you'll do that with the VBA for the disability purposes, but you'll do it with the Veteran Health Administration for the health care purposes. So please know that there are two portions of it. If you don't have disability but still have symptoms from an exposure, you can get seen through the VA for that exposure while you are trying to get the disability benefits. So just know that there are two portions of it.
Yeah, and I was lucky enough. I was able to get both, but yeah, I ended up getting really sick. Come to find out, I have a disease in my throat. It's called Barrett's disease. It's when your lining of your esophagus starts changing, and they say it's linked. It depends on the severity of it. It can be considered cancerous or precancerous. Um, Mine unfortunately is precancerous. I already went and got diagnosed. I went and I actually here in a couple of weeks, I actually got to go get another endoscope just to check on it. And I have to do that every so often, which is unbearable, but it's
Yeah.
what it is. But yeah, when that happened, I was laying in a bed and, I was sitting there puking up blood, and my throat was, all tore up from these abrasions and these cuts and lacerations in my throat, and my esophagus. I was just hating it, and I at that time I really put my hands in God, and I said, hey, I'm in your hands, Lord. If you deem me worthy to be saved, save me. If you do not deem me worthy to be saved, then I am at your will, and I will do whatever you deem it. And so that really kind of opened it up. And then at that time, I realized, I was like, man, I have been taking for granted a lot of things. And a lot of it was my mental health was, man, I thought I was okay, but I'm not okay. And then that's when I said, I was on the phone with my psychiatrist from the VA, and she just says, well, hey, she's like, I know you've turned down therapy so many times. She's like, I see it here in your chart. You've turned it down so many times. I really think you should. She's like, there's a great guy here. Just hear him out. Just do one session, hear him out, and see what happens. And I was like, okay. And so, but he contacts me and says, hey, before we do that, let's see if we can connect with somebody in your local community. And I said, okay, yeah, let's do that. And I did. It didn't turn out the best. We had to find our people, and his problem was the local guy he was so, even though he was an advocate with VA, and in the network with VA Health, with Community Choice and Community Care, the problem was is that he was so used to treating people of SA and DA and all these things, that he was not used to dealing with veterans and he dealt with PTSD, but it was, it's different. Veterans PTSD is different than other people's PTSD. And so for me, I was like, he wanted to talk about, like, oh, hey, can we talk about where this happened, when this happened, who was with you, stuff like that. And I was like, I can't. And he's like, well, why not? It's classified. Unless we are in a classified material, you have and I get from on high saying I'm allowed to talk about this from the DIA and the CIA, and the CID. Nope. Yeah, no, I'm not talking about it, because I kind of like my freedom. I don't want to go to Leavenworth.
Yeah.
And so he didn't really get that hint. And so finally I contacted the VA again. I said, hey, this isn't going to work. And he's being too pushy on certain subjects that I cannot talk about. I legally cannot talk about. I signed NDAs. I signed all this agreements. I'm not going to talk about this. My word means my word, and I signed that on the dotted line saying I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to talk about it. So they got me connected with somebody directly in the VA who says, hey, I can't talk about this stuff, and I understand it, but we're gonna try. I know there's ways, because he's like, I've dealt with guys like you. He's like, I've dealt with special forces guys and guys in the special operations community, where I can kind of work my way around certain things. And so then I got connected with him, and he was great. And then he's like, hey, I can only do so much. You can only do so much. You need to do so much on your part, and how we can do that is through these apps like CBT. And I was like, really apprehensive. I was like, what is this? You're turning your job over to an app, like. And then once I started learning about it and getting into it, we walked through it every session. We walked through it, and then we started really tuning in on certain events and certain things that cause or that are like things that happen in my mind and in my trauma. And next thing you know, it was awesome. It really, really changed my perspective, and it really helped me. And then he goes, okay, we're still seeing we have some problems here, guys, with your sleep, and we're still seeing sleep problems. There's this other app for insomnia. Let's go to that now. And that's where I was like, oh, okay, that's what I want, kind of thing. And because my sleep is what matters to me the most, is my sleep. That's what really matters to me when it comes to my mental health. Because Marie, you brought up the very first about you were so tired you couldn't even speak correctly. And sleep is such a big importance. And with us in the military, that was such a big thing. Like we did not want to take our sleep for granted because we didn't know when we would sleep.
Yeah, sleep deprivation was a thing.
Oh yeah.
So I'm gonna put in the chat for Brian to put up. If you guys are interested in these apps, so copy. If you guys are interested in these apps, there's so many different apps that are available for veterans. I just put it in the chat. It's the VA App Store. So mobile.va.gov/app store. And there are so many of those apps that are available if you're a veteran to get on there. Mindfulness. Let's see. There's the VA Health Chat, Stay Quit Coach. There's a whole lot of different ones that are on there.
Yeah. We
So please check it out.
definitely is a good. I didn't even know about this thing, so it's definitely a good another good avenue for people to go check out.
Yeah, and cognitive processing therapy. So I've talked about this a lot on on the show because that is what really made a change for me is the CPT. When I moved out here to Utah, I started doing my trauma therapy, which was CPT, which just it just changed everything. And so what that is where you're identifying the stuck points and the lies that you have been telling yourself for so long and challenging that stuff and creating new truths within yourself. And so they call them a lot of different things, but it's what is holding you back. And so I love that. I'm glad that that kind of stuff is working for you. Now, I know
Yeah.
that we
Yeah,
are
we gotta start
getting
wrapping
low on
her up.
time. So
Yeah.
before we go, I want you to please let us know about your VT3C, your business that you created. How did you create it? What are you guys doing? And then also about this other business that you've been working on
Yeah,
as well.
we only got about 5 minutes though. So yeah, we're
Okay.
gonna have to. Unfortunately, we're running out of time.
Yeah, that's fine. So I'll just be really quick. So VT3C is a company I came up with after COVID and the gym shut down. I went back to bodyguard school, became a certified bodyguard and executive protection agent and security professional. I did some DoD contracting, was actually supposed to go back to Afghanistan, but then the fall happened. Then I decided, I was like, well, this is great, but I kind of want to learn. I kind of like really teaching people when I was doing martial arts. So I decided I was going to go back, did some, got my certifications as a firearms instructor, counteractive shooter instructor, first aid instructor, and a bunch of other things. And I just decided, you know what, I'm going to make my own company for my local area because there's nothing around teaching people all this stuff. So we cover everything from from tactical training to emergency preparedness, emergency management, to first aid, emergency medicine, everything from CPR to trauma emergencies, and pretty much train people to be their own first responder. And then we go over home defense, and then I do consulting work where I'll go to, one of the big things right now is with churches, churches with all these attacks on the churches is I go and do security assessments. I do church security training with their security teams, with their ministries. And so I'm just trying to get back to my community, and seeing a gap where I'm like, oh, well, people might be prepared. They might think they're prepared, but they're not trained to actually act and respond. So that's what I do with that. And we cover a lot of wide varieties. Mainly in my area, there are some other veterans and other both first responder veterans and military veterans that do this kind of stuff. But not as in depth as I do, but my biggest thing is I teach a lot of shotgun training, both tactically and defensively, as well as you can use it for sport or for competition. And then the other thing is the other premier class that I'm actually working on right now is one. I had a couple guys that want me to do what we call a gray man training, where we're training people to blend in, but also so that they can either collect information in a very dangerous situation. They can collect information to stay safe, but also that they can they know how to be dangerous if they have to be dangerous, and act when they need to act when they're in a dangerous situation. So that one will kind of cover everything from firearms safety and firearms training in a gray man situation and concealed carrying, but also we'll go over stuff on like how to collect information, how to do basic surveillance, and also how to deal with if you're being surveilled, because people don't realize like cartels and these criminal organizations, they do pull surveillance on stuff. So teaching people how to not be surveilled, or burglars. So, if you got a local, guy that just wants to, steal from you or your home, how to tell if he's casing your house, and and finding those people so that you can report them. So just stuff like that. But yeah, it's a great thing. I work with companies, churches, community groups, as well as even governments. I'm working with a couple of city governments with helping them with their emergency preparedness.
So
Outstanding, man.
if you would ever be interested, I will send you the link again. We'd love to have you on again to go into more details of what you're doing, and maybe even like give us a class. Would you be up for that at some point?
100% would be willing to do that.
Cool.
Awesome. So let's get you signed up to come in, because I know we focus mostly on who you are and your experience with reintegration and stuff like that, but we want to know more. This is exactly the stuff that our listeners would love to hear. So let's get you signed up, get you back on here so we can go into more details, and then you can just teach us some of the stuff that you have going on.
Yeah, and even I'll even maybe we could do this where it's like you said, teaches some stuff where I'll get it set up where I can set up my camera, and we can I'll even do some like show you guys some cool stuff that we do here
Let's
at
do it.
BK3C.
I would love
do
it,
it.
man. That'd be a great
Yeah.
little special we could do.
Yeah.
Steven, thank you so much, brother. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing your experience, and thank you for opening yourself up to everybody. It's not always easy to do, but here on this show, it's all about healing out loud. It's something that's necessary. A lot of people can learn from us if we don't suffer in silence and we share our stories. A lot of more people can benefit from it. We just would like to thank everybody once again. Steven, thank you for coming on, and we'll see you, buddy.
Yep. Thank you, Stephen. And hang
And
out, and we'll chat with you after. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And we just thank you guys so much for,
yes.
joining us. This is going to be a great season 4. As you can see, we're going to have people back on again and share kind of more about their classes and get a little bit more in depth of what they offer and stuff like that. So maybe someone could get some good benefits from it. But you know how we say on the show, don't let the day kick your ass. Make sure you're out there kicking it. And we'll see you guys on the next one. We'll see y'all.
Bye.
Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.